Brad Marchand haunts the Leafs once again as he delivers in overtime. The Panthers protect home ice and are right back in the series.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Saturday, May 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Blue Sky at L_FLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your next order. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers as the Florida Panthers get a 5-4 overtime win against the Toronto Maple Leafs to stay alive in the second round against them after it did not look promising for them, going down 2-0 and then being down 3-1 for them. 3 second period goals for the Panthers had them take a lead into the third period, and although the Leafs tied it, the Panthers found a way just over 10 minutes into overtime. Brad Marchand with the heroics there to give the Florida Panthers a win. They protect home ice, and they have a chance to tie the series on Sunday. And here to break down all of this and more on today's edition of the show, he is Florida Panthers historian, Francisco Oporta. Francisco, welcome back as we can exhale after that one, as you are doing right now, as you are getting introduced to the show.
Yeah, I mean, the game overall was just felt that way, but that overtime period completely was just fast paced, and it just kept going. It just kept going. There were no penalties being called. Everything was just moving so quickly that you really couldn't stop to breathe until finally some jubilance at the end.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny because we were texting back and forth, and after it was 2-0, our hopes were pretty down for the Panthers here as the Toronto Maple Leafs scored 2 goals in 5 minutes and 57 seconds, where it was a fail clear by the Panthers. Gustav Forsling goes up into the slot. Aaron Ekblad gets muscled up by Matthew Nyes, and he knocks it in, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs go on a breakaway on an odd man rush for them, and then Bobrovsky takes a bad angle, and then John Tavares scores on the wraparound. But less than 2 minutes later, Alexander Barkov scores. But then after that, things started to relax for the Panthers here. For them, they stopped the odd man rushes, and were starting to break things up in the neutral zone as the Panthers were just starting to get the pucks deep and at least get to work. And also to mention, Paul Maurice took a little bit of a gamble today, replacing the entire fourth line, putting Nosek, Gadjovich, and AJ Greer back in the lineup, and it resulted in a goal, one of the 3 second period goals for them, and the one to take the lead, 15:07 into the second period. But that was huge for the Panthers. But also the thing for the Panthers is how they picked up the physicality. I mean, it's been a physical series for them. They've delivered hits over and over again. They were clearly going after Chris Tanev. Even though he didn't get the points in the 2 of the goals, he was extremely responsible for the 2 as he fought off the forecheck on the second one and kept the puck in on the first one. But I mean, for the Panthers here, I mean, it was just really about not giving up and two goal deficits that they were able to come back from. So gotta give credit to them that they continued to fight.
Yeah, the one thing that sort of happened with this one is, in comparison to the first 2 games, I felt like the Panthers avoided as much as possible shooting themselves in the foot almost immediately after gaining some actual momentum. Because you had the opportunity in game 1 where they were basically close to within a goal, and then it became 5-3, and then you had game 2 where they also were able to tie that game and then almost immediately just gave it up. And there was no real way to garner some momentum. Whereas in this game, the Panthers were able to come back from the 2-goal deficit, and each swing and punch from each side, they were able to answer back. They were able to claw back and get the lead, had 3 goals unanswered. Unfortunately, Toronto was able to tie the game. But then after that, especially the overtime period, it really did feel like the Panthers were, I would say, enduring the overtime period much better than Toronto, because Toronto was going bar for bar with the Panthers for the most part in the middle of the game. But as the overtime period kept wearing on, the Panthers kept having possession of the puck. They were still mainly in the Toronto end of the ice and just shooting left and right. And eventually something went in. It wasn't planned. It was probably the dumbest goal that they scored today, but it was a goal. You throw the pucks on net. That's what you're supposed to do, and see what the heck happened. And that was pretty much the theme of this game as well for both sides.
Yeah, 2 goals deflected in, one of them off of Gustav Forsling, and then the other one off of Seth Jones to tie the game at 4 for the Panthers. And the TNT broadcast also mentioned Bobrovsky tapping Gustav Forsling after. It's like, hey, knock it off, bud. We got this. So that just goes to show how mature and composed this team is. After the first period, though, the faceoffs were 66% to Toronto to Florida's 33%. The game ended. Let me pull this stat right here at 46% for the Panthers to 53. So the Panthers were starting to win their draws over, not having to chase plays. So that really kept things going for the Panthers. The defensemen were keeping the plays alive in the offensive zone for them. There were multiple power plays, including the one towards the end of the third period, where the Panthers had the entire power play 1 unit on the ice for them, and multiple power plays. It was Sam Reinhart that was getting the pucks off the crossbar / the post too as well.
Yes.
So that's
Rhino could have ended this game a lot sooner. Just he was an inch or 2 off.
Yeah, no doubt. And hey, even for the Panthers, after right before they took the lead at 4-3, Marchand had a nice breakaway opportunity, but it was blocked for him. So special teams, even though it was in favor of the Leafs going 1 for 4 on them, and the power play discrepancy was 4-3 for them, even though the high stick from Morgan Riley to Anton Lundell, the camera actually panned to Paul Maurice. We can't curse on the show, but it was like, what the heck was that? I'm going to put the clean version of that for the audience here. So this game was also about redemption as well for multiple guys for this game. The fourth line commits a penalty that resulted in the power play goal. The second line is a little too spread out right before the second goal, right on that stretch pass, and then Marchand was stripped right before Morgan Riley threw the puck on net. So it was every single time the Panthers gave up something, they always responded in a way, even if it didn't come immediately for them. And then you think about the goal scores, and also it's not only the fourth line that came in for them. Barkov scored again. Sam Reinhart crashed the net, and we didn't even know if it was in at first. Right. I was just like, and then Carter Verhaeghe on that second line for the Panthers here, and winning a battle. Matthew Tkachuk hasn't had the best series. We know what's going on with him. At least we feel like we do. But winning that battle in the neutral zone where they exposed Mitch Marner a little bit. He overskated on that blue line, and then Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett got that backhand to Carter Verhaeghe, easily went in. Chef's kiss on that. But the Panthers found a way to expose the top line. It was the fourth line that scored on the top line for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They got in on the forecheck on Morgan Riley, forcing him to make a bad play as well. Brandon Carlo broke his stick so many times, one that led to an Etu breakaway, and then one on the overtime winner as well. Yeah. So they know who they're going after.
Yeah, Carlo even played that stick with the broken stick, that with the overturned call there that they had to review. The puck did cross the line and everything like that. But another big point. Once again, the Panthers stars showed up today on the score sheet, especially with Barkov's goal, losing balance, finding a way to knock that one in. Really kept that game from feeling like it was over before it even started, with the Leafs up 2-0, because you really had to garner some sort of control and get some of the I guess the energy from the crowd, because we had already seen what had happened in the first two games. And it seems like this is the way that Toronto has been playing the Panthers to start. Is I've noticed how much faster Toronto has been at the beginning of the games, not allowing the Panthers to have some sort of I don't know, a feel for the game early on. They're setting the tone a little bit early with regards to their speed and their skill, and it's messed up the Panthers on a bit, because it's taken them a bit just to get a groove into the game. And eventually they do. We've seen that in the first two games already, where the Panthers eventually get back into this game and give the Leafs fans a scare. But this game felt more like a continuation of the third periods that the Panthers have been playing lately, where it's like, okay, this is the grindy type of hockey that Paul Maurice has been instituting in Florida system for the last 3 seasons now. And now we saw an extended version of this across not only 60 minutes, but beyond that. And the Leafs just couldn't keep up. And I felt like that, once again, the longevity, the stamina of the Panthers to keep playing this style of hockey, just blow for blow and just grinding it out and just finding a way, was the difference maker in this one, where Toronto tried to keep up. And kudos to the Leafs for trying to find a way to break the Panthers, or try and figure out a way to defeat them. But this is the playoff style hockey that the Panthers have been doing for the last 3 seasons, and they're not letting up now. And there was a lot of unsung heroes today as well. And the fourth line, especially Sergei Bobrovsky. A lot of people have been harping on him. Oh, he's got to be better. He's got to be better. Man, he came in the clutch when it counted in that overtime.
Yep. And I got more on that thought about the stamina and also Sergei Bobrovsky, where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and a moment where we knew the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And you just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday? How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. And I've been in a spot where I've needed to hire someone like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed Sponsored Jobs come in handy. They make sure your posts are seen and by the right candidate right now. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Segment 2 here on this Saturday, May 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Here with Florida Panthers historian to break down this Panthers' 5-4 overtime win against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 3 of Round 2. And Francisco, let's go right to our 3 stars of the game for this one. Number 3 star for the Panthers here, I'm going to go with Sergei Bobrovsky. Kept it together multiple times, especially during overtime. 2 huge breakaway opportunities. Although the Panthers were able to get back on the Nylander one, he still made a stop on that one. And then Matthew Nyes in overtime for him to keep the Panthers in it. So even though it might say 4 goals against for the Panthers, he came up big when he needed to. Number 2 star. This is going to be an odd one for me. Usually it's individuals, but this can go to the entire fourth line. But I'm going to go with Jonah Gadjovich getting the go-ahead goal when it was 4-3 in the second period for them. And the fact that that we mentioned Mitch Marner overskating on the Verhaeghe goal, he lost the puck right at the blue line that led to rush opportunity for the Panthers. Tomas Nosek shoots and it deflects off of Jonah Gadjovich, and he was one of those wrecking balls, just like Carter Verhaeghe. Carter Verhaeghe was also another wrecking ball tonight. Jonah Gadjovich was one of those. Etulus Thureinen is another. So Jonah Gadjovich is my second star, and of course, number one star has to go to Brad Marchand. And we've been talking about since the start of the playoffs how great that third line is. And as I mentioned earlier, the redemption that Brad Marchand got stripped of the puck by Matthew Nyes. And then the TNT broadcast also mentioned that we could have argued that it could have been a hooking call on Matthew Nyes when he got stripped there. But he gets the game-winning goal for that. That was deflected off of Morgan Rielly. Morgan Rielly was just bullied on this night for the Toronto Maple Leafs there. And it goes past Joseph Woll. And then the GWG for Brad Marchand. So number one. So Bob, Gadjovich, Marchand. Your 3 stars, my friend.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with. Let's start with Brad Marchand. I'll have him at number 3. Game-winning goal, yes. Huge, yes. But I do want to be able to give it to some other guys as well. Actually, number 1 guy is a little different. Number 2 would be Sergei Bobrovsky. As much as you may want to harp of him for giving up 4 goals during the first 3 periods, but that overtime period, there were a lot of clutch saves by Sergei Bobrovsky coming in huge for everybody. Got the people chanting Bobby again inside Amaranth, so that was fantastic. And then I'm giving it to Carter Verhaeghe at number 1. He was everywhere. He was everywhere tonight. He was hitting. He was scoring. He was shooting. Like everywhere, it seemed like everybody knows he's the guy. He's swaggy P in the playoffs, and he played like it today. I do like the fact that the Panthers' top 2 lines were incredibly visible to start this game as well. So those are my 3 stars.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention Sam Bennett also got 6 hits. Carter Verhaeghe also 6 hits as well. So just the Panthers, just the physicality has just been there. Sergei Bobrovsky, as we both mentioned on our 3 stars. I mean, he was also reading the Toronto Maple Leafs well whenever they would have that return feed on give and goes, that he was just really aggressive with the stick, getting those poke checks and also getting it out. There was this one save that he had where it was trickling up and then he gets the stick and swipes it down back to the boards, where it could have been an easy opportunity for a second chance for the Leafs as well. And also on the other side, Joseph Woll, the Panthers were starting to also, once again, just like they did in game 2, force Joseph Woll to play the puck, and they were starting to get in to the forecheck there for him. So eventually, I feel like it's going to break. Anton Lundell had a great opportunity, like not even a minute into the third period, where Joseph Woll gets the stick back for him, and at that time, it really could have ended there, and our heart rate could have been a lot lower, and the Panthers could have really played that shutdown hockey earlier. The Panthers are still undefeated when in the Paul Maurice era, when going into the third period with the lead. I believe now it's 23-0, 22-0, one of those numbers too. So like you mentioned, at the end of segment number 1, the Panthers were able to just get back to their style and what Paul Maurice has implemented over the last 3 years. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess one of the things that we didn't see happen a lot were these breakaways. I mean, there were a few in this game as well, and Bob came up big with them. But those home run passes, those passes where they're getting behind the defense, you didn't see that as much as compared to game 1 and 2. So they did shore up the defense, just playing a slightly more conservatively with regards to that, and not getting caught as well, because the Panthers do have that style of play where the D is pinching in, and they were a lot more selective in this one, which I think benefited them huge to allow themselves to get a groove for the game. And I think they do. Because the idea is the Panthers don't play the style of hockey that the Lightning or the Leafs play with regards to just the high rate of offense. I mean, that's not their style of play. Yes, they scored 5 goals today, but this is not the style that the Panthers would normally play. But they were able to go bar for bar, and then they locked down and were in the trenches going forward after that. Once the Leafs tied it, and then they just kept going forward with that. Eventually, it got to a point where dumping it in, being able to win the battles on the boards, their forecheck, everything else, pucks in play, and the Leafs didn't really have a chance to build up any sort of offense outside of some couple of breakaways or so that Bob came up big on, and it just kept going with the cycle. And the Panthers eventually broke through because they had a lot of shots on net towards the end of that overtime period there, and it was really great to see that the Leafs it seemed like they just were gassed by the end of it.
No doubt, and for the Panthers here with Toronto using their speed a lot, you would think, okay, you need to match their speed with speed. No, not with Paul Maurice and this crew, knowing that this is how they won, and knowing that even though Gadjovich, Greer, and Nosek aren't the fastest of foot guys, it's like, okay, we still gotta find a play to who we are, as the logic is for them. So big ups to the coaching staff for being able to take a big gamble, even though Paul Maurice did speak during morning skate that it's dependent on health, as we don't know what's exactly going on at this moment in time. So the moment where we knew the game was won, at the moment, for me, it wasn't necessarily the overtime winner. It was at the time that the whistle was blown and they had the mandatory ice scrape in overtime, thinking, man, the Panthers are pushing and pushing and pushing. The Barkov line had a real great opportunity when the puck got deep. Reinhart almost tried to bounce it off the back of Joseph Wall at one point in the overtime period. I'm just thinking, man. And then the fourth line for them even got an opportunity late in sorry, not the fourth line, the Tkachuk line. And he was it looks like that Matthew Tkachuk was trying to put a similar play like he did in Game 6 against Boston, where he was allowing the guys to go to the net as he hugged the puck near the blue line. Well, in the case of the Game 6 last year, it was neutral zone. In this time, it was in the offensive zone, allowing the guys to go in and then trying to drive the puck after. And then, unfortunately, Carter Verhaeghe didn't score from that sharp angle, but eventually the Panthers did. So I feel in that period of time for the Panthers, they were starting to really push, and it was just a matter of breaking through right before Brad Marchand. So it was moments before that overtime goal.
Right. I would say it had to be afterwards as well, because that when they had the mandatory ice scraping, that was straight up like maybe 7-8 minutes of just nonstop hockey.
No doubt.
And the guys on the broadcast crew were saying that they have to have a mandatory ice scrape here, because it just kept going. No penalties were being called. It was just going back and forth, and the Leafs were trying to garner some sort of that speed and skill, but the Panthers were matching it, and it seemed like they were pushing it more and more as far as the offense and the tempo of that game that the Leafs just couldn't keep up with. And then it got to that point where they just were not letting that puck out of the zone, and just gaining the re-entry right away. Completely swapping all four lines as well. It just kept going as a cycle. And then eventually, shots were going flying through, shots wide from the point, from on inside, getting guys to the front, crashing. Eventually, Marchand's goal finds a way to ping pong its way into the net and just floats on in there, and they won. And man, it's beautiful to be on this end of a Brad Marchand breaking the Leafs' heart goal.
Weird.
It's like, oh man, this is great. Yeah, this is fantastic. I can see why Boston fans love this feeling, and seeing Maple Leaf Square all sad and all that stuff, all those fair weather Blue Jays fans out there. So that's great.
You spoke about the Leafs being gassed and tired and in their end, but even for the Panthers at the beginning of the overtime, there was a big icing call that Nico Mikkola didn't gain the red line, and then it took him a while to get off. And remember, in overtime, in the first overtime at least, it's a long
two defensemen that were stuck out there for a while. And the Panthers were able to
him and Jones
to get that clear. Mm-hmm.
And also, smart of Paul Maurice at the start of overtime, putting Mikkola on the ice as well. Knowing that there was 14 seconds, you have to protect the rush, knowing that Pacioretty was coming out of the box. So those were also little itty bitty tweaks and game management things that Paul Maurice did to protect it. Yeah, it'll be great if you could score, but hey, you got to let's put 2D back in order to protect that for for them, and especially because of how fast Toronto is. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss more about this game and how the Panthers are discussing post game as well. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, give you visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Segment 3 here on this Saturday, May 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here with Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta to continue this conversation of the Panthers' 5-4 overtime win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, the Panthers were able to get an overtime win, but unfortunately the Charlotte Checkers were unable to get an overtime win against the Providence Bruins. So Game 5 of their second round series in the Calder Cup playoffs, winner take all to advance to the next round, is 3 p.m. on Sunday. You can watch that on Flow Hockey as well if you want to catch that game. So before the game, actually during warmups, so as you guys can tell by watching this on YouTube, I'm not at the game. I wasn't at the game tonight, so I wasn't hearing news about what was going on in warmups as Gary Bettman was talking to the media. And one relevant news about the Florida Panthers is the plan for the outdoor game is just to have the roof closed for warmups and then open it to at the start of the game. Obviously, we're expecting this game to be in prime time at night, so less likely for the ice to melt. So because we have not only Florida Panthers historian here, but Marlins historian here, just want to get your thoughts on that real quick.
I mean, I always assumed that was going to be the plan anyways. So I would assume that it's a Friday, January 2nd, so that's a Friday night. Works perfectly for Miami. Fantastic. I did assume, that they'd have the roof closed and sealed completely. Lone Depot Park, I'm not sure if it has any dehumidifiers there, but I'm going to assume that the NHL is going to install a ton of them in and around that ballpark to make sure that humidity is as low as it could possibly be by the time they do open it for game time. So I think you'll see some things that they're going to add to Lone Depot Park in the run up to it. I don't think the Marlins don't host a bowl game anymore, so they pretty much have that ballpark set for I think it takes an entire 4 weeks for them to build the ice now. So I'm going to assume a lot of preliminary work is going to be done in and around the ballpark to make sure it's as sealed as possible, it's as dehumidified as possible in order to get the ice right. And they're going to keep track of the weather as well. There's plenty of options as to how they can do this. The roof opens, the windows open as well over at Lone Depot Park. I don't know if they'll have the roof open, leave the windows closed. There's a few options as to what they're going to do. As far as the seating and everything is concerned, I'm going to wonder how they're going to do that. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be the same setup as they've had at other Major League ballparks for all of these outdoor games, with the ice spread from, I'm going to assume, from first base to third base across that way diagonally. And then they'll have a bunch of random knickknacks and weird things that they have to, play to the local flair of South Florida. So it's going to be fun speculating as to all the things that they'll have on the field to go alongside with that. Because with the stadium series out in Dodger Stadium, they had people playing volleyball and doing things like that. So I wonder what they're going to do for South Florida, if they're really going to lean into the whole Miami-ness of all this, or they're going to try and encompass all of South Florida in that sense, including the Keys, including Palm Beach and Broward. But it's going to be I'm really excited from a historical perspective. The Panthers returning to Miami for the first time since 1998 to their actual roots. So, and wondering once again what they're going to look like. Are they going to play to the fact that they're playing in a baseball stadium? Are they going to play to some of the stuff with the Marlins? Or are they really going to go for a faux back look? There's some historical hockey teams that have played in South Florida. I know other teams like the Nashville Predators have gone back to get some inspiration as to designs. Or will the Panthers go full on retro and just use either their original logo or their updated version of their original logo with the leaping cat in a way with their uniforms? I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the whole thing. I don't think the Panthers will miss with this one, and I think the NHL is going to do everything in their power to make sure that thing goes right.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, and also the pre-sale tickets are available. If you get the emails from the Florida Panthers and a code for the pre-sale for them. So very excited for Friday, January 2nd. It fits for everyone who wants to go out after the game as well on a Friday night, just after New Year's, if you're done drinking your coquito or your eggnog after that. But back to the game for the Panthers here. So a few quotes from the guys in the locker room from Kobe Guy of Florida of not Florida Pucks and Palms and Palm Beach Post quoted something from Paul Maurice on Carter Verhaeghe. He's not allowed to come off the ice in overtime, even though he didn't score the game-winning goal. Carter Verhaeghe, just magic happens with him for him, and also described Brad Marchand, calling him Iron Lungs after his line mates came off the ice and he scored the winner for him. And also Brad Marchand. This is why you get seasoned veterans here. We talk, even though Seth Jones hasn't been on a long playoff run, he's been in the league. He's in the same draft class as Barkov, so he's been there, done that for him. Brad Marchand after the game also spoke about it's great, but they got to move on to the next one, because at the same time, I do feel the Panthers do have a lifeline here, because it didn't look promising at first, and a bounce could have gone either way for the Leafs, and it could and we could have had a completely different conversation here. But just a very mature response from Brad Marchand, because you still have to protect home ice one more time. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-1 game, 2-1 series lead now, or series at this point, so they're still down, and you really have to continue this momentum and continue this tone of Panthers hockey going into Game 4, especially if you can start Game 4 differently than you've started Game 1 and Game 2, because this game started with the Leafs going up 2-0.
Yeah,
and I think you're going to discourage the Leafs themselves and their entire completely delusional fan base if you prevent them going up 2-0. If you can get the lead to start a game and start to lock down and clamp down, because if the Panthers win Game 4 in the fashion that I hope that they do, either with a 2-goal lead or 1-goal lead, that just seems like the Leafs, no matter what they're trying to do, does not work. And they can't use their skill, they can't use their speed, and the Panthers are just completely breaking them down. Then you're going to have a lot of sports talk radio in Toronto going crazy, thinking that the series is over for them. Like, oh no, here it comes again. It's Brad Marchand from the Bruins. He's brought their spirit over to the Panthers. It's going to go awful. And that's what the Panthers are trying to inject into the back of the minds of all those guys in Toronto. And I think Game 4, if the Panthers win it, I feel like, man, you have to feel really going into Toronto, because remember, despite the fact that they lost both games in Toronto, everybody was sweating those games.
Especially
the Panthers
Game 1.
were, yeah, the Panthers were coming back from behind, and it seemed like if only one or two things where they shot themselves in the foot didn't happen, they probably come back out of those, either tying the games and going to overtime, and who knows what happens. Or they could have picked up a win over there, and they'd be up 2-1 right now. So there's a few things here where Leafs fans have to think, man, this could have gone either way. And remember, the Leafs in the Ottawa series as well, they could have easily lost that series because all those games were close as well. So the Panthers just have to play the way that they're playing in order to turn this around. And I think you'll start to see some of the flaws start compounding upon themselves for the Leafs.
Yeah, and also to recap their series against Ottawa, they won in overtime in games 2 and 3. One of them being on the road for them, and even Johnny Lazarus of Morning Cup of Hockey for Daily Faceoff also mentioned this morning how it feels like a must-win for the Leafs. I'm like, wait, a must-win for the Leafs going on the road? But thinking about it over and over again, I'm just thinking how the Panthers' psyche is and the way they find a way of never say die for them is. I kind of understand why it could have been a must-win because, you know, coming back from 3-0, I mean, it's happened 4 times in NHL history for them. So I kind of understand why they feel that it could have been a must-win, but at the same time, it's you got to get one more. So I can understand why the Leafs could be sweating a little bit, especially with, as you mentioned, the fact that the Panthers had it within a goal in games 1 and 2 and scrape this one by for them to at least get the dub and to at least make it a series. So still not over. There's still so much hockey to be played, and man, how big of a win would it be on Sunday night if they're able to tie the series at 2? We won't have a preview show before Game 4, but we will be back with you guys on Monday to recap Game 4 between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Francisco, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast as we recap a 5-4 overtime win for the Florida Panthers over the Leafs. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
So at FLA Cats History on Twitter, as well as at Marlins History on Twitter. They lost to the White Sox, so things aren't going great with the Marlins right now, and their pitching is doing something weird where they're not throwing fastballs anymore for some weird reason. I don't know, but we're in Panthers land right now, and I'm just going to continue to keep posting clips as they happen during the games because it's a great time to be a historian when all the good stuff is happening right now. So, just follow me there.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Francisco Oporta. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.